Hello, and welcome to this Google Hangout. Today we are going to be talking about database types, specifically SQL and NoSQL. To the average person who doesn't know about database types, this comic may not seem funny in the slightest. However, it points out one of the major differences between the two database types, and that is the idea of relationships. It also shows that although SQL is still a very important and prevalent database type, many people highly value NoSQL since it is newer. We will talk more about the differences in these database types later. This presentation is meant to explain what a database is and then go into detail about two of the most important database types, SQL and NoSQL. In this presentation, our main points that we will touch on are what is a database management system, two important database types, SQL, SQL history, NoSQL, NoSQL history, factors that led to NoSQL, differences between the two, and which to use. In general, a database is a collection of data that is organized. This collection includes many parts, such as schemas, tables, queries, reports, views, and etc. A database management system is a software application that analyzes and captures data by interacting with the user, the database, and other applications. Two of the most important database types are SQL and NoSQL. The SQL database, also referred to as relational, stands for Structured Query Language and is a special type of programming language that is meant for managing data in a relational database management system. There are three types of languages that make up SQL, and those are data definition language, data manipulation language, and a data control language. There are several language elements of SQL that include clauses, expressions, predicates, queries, and statements. SQL, or relational databases, utilize relations, which organizes that data into collections through data tables that organize the information in a structured way. Since this method has been around longer, it is extremely reliable and efficient. SQL was created at IBM by Donald D. Chamberlain and Raymond F. Boyce early in the 1970s. NoSQL, which stands for non-SQL, also referred to as non-relational, has a mechanism for storing and retrieving data other than tabular relations used in SQL. There are a few factors that were motivation to create NoSQL. Those include simplicity of design, simpler horizontal scaling to clusters of machines, and finer control over availability. These were aspects that were challenging for SQL. NoSQL does not have the same constraints as SQL databases and employs a non-structured approach. There are a few different types of NoSQL databases that include the document data model, key value stores, graph databases, and columnar databases. For the document data model, instead of storing data in rows and columns and in tables, data is stored in documents, and these documents are grouped together in collections. Each document can have completely different structures. Document databases include CouchDB and MongoDB. For key value stores, data is stored in an associative array of key value pairs. The key is an attribute name, which is linked to a value. Well-known key value stores include Redis, Voldemort, which was developed by LinkedIn, and Dynamo, which was developed by Amazon. For the graph database, it is used for data whose relations are represented well in a graph. Data is stored in graph structures with nodes, which is another name for entities, properties, which is information about the entities, and lines, which are connections between the entities. Examples of this type of database include Neo4j and Infinite Graph. Finally, for the columnar database, instead of tables, columnar databases have column families, which are containers for rows. You don't need to know all of the columns up front, and each row doesn't have to have the same number of columns. Columnar databases are best suited to analyzing huge data sets, and some of the big names include Cassandra and HBase. The term NoSQL was first used by Carlos Strozzi in 1998, but later became popular in 2009 with Johan Oskarsson. Clearly, there are many ways that SQL and NoSQL differ. Scalability and ACID compliancy, which stands for atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. For data storage in SQL, the data is stored in a relational model with rows and columns. Rows contain all of the information about one specific entry or entity, and columns are all separate data points. For example, you might have a row about a specific car, in which the columns are make, model, color, and so on. For NoSQL, this term encompasses a lot of different databases that each have a different data storage model. The main ones are document, graph, key value, and columnar. For schemas and flexibility, in SQL, each record conforms to fixed schema, meaning the columns must be decided and locked before data entry, and each row must contain data for each column. This can be amended, but it involves altering the whole database and going offline. For NoSQL, schemas are dynamic, and information can be added whenever, on the fly. And each row, or the equivalent, doesn't have to contain data for each column, so to speak. For scalability, in SQL, the scaling is vertical. So more data means a bigger server, which can get really expensive. It is possible to scale relational database managing systems across multiple servers, but this is a difficult and time-consuming process. For NoSQL, scaling is horizontal, meaning across servers. These multiple servers can be cheap hardware or cloud instances, making it a lot more cost-effective than vertical scaling. Many NoSQL technologies also distribute data across servers automatically. Finally, for ACID compliancy, most of the SQL relational databases are ACID compliant. However, for NoSQL, it varies between the technologies. However, many of the solutions sacrifice ACID compliancy for performance and scalability. Although there are many differences in the two types of databases, it is possible to utilize more than one type of database in a company. In fact, many companies opt to use both the types of databases concurrently. However, it really depends on the data. In this presentation, we discussed what databases are and then went into detail about the two important types, SQL and NoSQL. We talked about what both consist of and also how they vary. Although it may appear as though SQL and NoSQL differ, as the comics stated, they came from the same place and can work concurrently as they both have benefits depending on your type of data. Thank you for watching this presentation about database types. Have a great day.